Okay, we've come a long way, indeed, since I think we started talking in April. What we started thinking initially was, hey, this is an audit. There's an enormous amount of inefficiency and corruption. Auditing kind of data platform will be the key. However, when we've talked to different people, we've kind of understood that auditors are not the best kind of buyers of this kind of idea. However, the procurement market, which Amex already operates, can be much better. Why? Because you go from auditing platform, which is corrective when the corruption or the inefficiency has already happened, and we're moving into procurement platform, which actually tackles the prevention, tackles the problem before it happens. So that's very interesting because we have a much higher impact and earlier in the process, so we can have even higher impact economically, but also in terms of outcomes. Now, very interestingly, Amex is evaluating how to become a unicorn force for good, a force for good unicorn, something that some company that can really transform and have enormous amount of impact in the industry. Thus, let me show you a little bit the big picture of how the product development roadmap for having a one procurement platform that we've developed with Rethink Lab could fit very well the big picture. I'm a big picture person. I'm going to try to show you, but I think it's very, very correlated to the fact that you're looking at the force for good, becoming a force for good unicorn. Let me share my screen as always. Okay. This is the document. Okay. You'll see very elaborate, very long. Actually, the document that we were looking is actually the PDF because it's a little bit in the format. But the interesting thing is we have even a timeline here. We have a lot of details that we've gone through and a timeline. Okay, a timeline to deliver on what and why is it important? Okay, you can see it's rather very incredibly long. Okay, here we have the interface and everything. Just showing you a little bit. We can send it or not. I don't want to torture you with that because I know it's a lot of detail. And I think that you're a very big picture person too. So I think that makes more sense. Then when we look into this, what is the big picture that I'm trying to show you? Okay. How does this fit? How does this 20-week sprint fit this? As you know, the ecosystem, you know it better than myself, and we can break it down in many different ways. But the key thing is patients, medical users, MPO buyers, supply integrators like Amex, and manufacturers. Everybody plays a role, and we've seen that there's many different challenges, okay? But the very interesting one, obviously, the one that we started was the lack of visibility, lack of control that happens on the supply side. But one very interesting is the demand, that knowing what's actually happening on the ground, especially trying to meet the demands of emergency relief. That would be especially the most relevant short-term or mid-term case, okay? But that's quite interesting. Or, for example, the lack of purchase power, or the lack especially of understanding of how everything fits with each other with the case of medical users, or very, very interesting long-term, the enormous impact in the industry, the complexity of forecasting. One of the reasons that manufacturing sometimes has really high cost is that you can't forecast, that people will demand on the go, but there's very difficult a way of actually manufacturing and investing your CapEx adequately. So long picture, long term, what is the impact? We already know, ginormous industry, 8.6 trillion, growing faster than GDP, the cost of medical care, and with enormous, I mean, this is just the size of the inefficiency is just mind-boggling. Could be 1.2 trillion, could be half a trillion, doesn't really matter. It's one of the biggest markets opportunities you can find out there. When we're looking into this, we're breaking it down into what could we need in those? What could the tools and the outcomes be in the industry? And for example, when we look at demand, we would need some data to know what's happening, where, who, and why there's a need for something, and that we could generate immediate heat maps of what is happening. And long term, with more data, you can actually generate patterns and understand long-term forecasting. In the case of to optimize spend and to increase efficiency of servicing that situation, optimize supply chain, how would that happen? If we have an intelligent ordering system that takes demand and generates the most efficient ordering possible. This is just naturally with AI or whatever other systems. This is part of data. And it's a little bit interesting because it's just part of data analytics and just taking the data and extracting more logical outcomes out of it. We can apply this. And long term, what we mentioned is the demand, the forecasting really helping manufacturers to optimize in that sense. Here, the first phase of building this is what we've mentioned, what you've, the document that you can see here with the interface, with everything that we're planning, that is all in completely in draft. There will still be a discovery phase. But the interesting part is that in X amount of time, what we want to build is one procurement and audit platform. An initial version of this. Obviously, this is all can be broken down in stages, and the spend can be broken down in stages. But this is the interesting part, that we can have everything in one place. The RFP, the data management, the RFP of all this, and the audit trail in one place to be able to ensure that it's all much more efficient than having a trail of emails and different systems like you guys are operating to try to capture that information. Obviously, like anyone, we're not the first people to think that, hey, let's do one platform that has everything. There's a lot of complexity behind this, but this is what we think clearly is a leap forward. And then the very important part that they require the machine learning or the, let's say, the statistical analysis. That's the reality. I mean, and obviously we want to put machine learning into everything, or AI, because it sounds powerful, but it's basically the data analytics, but optimize ordering and optimize servicing. Okay, basically, what is the most efficient? Taking the data that we have, what is the most efficient supply? This is what you guys in parallel want to do the test, the micro test, and saying, hey, we're going to take this data, we're going to optimize. Here, what we're talking is about the full platform as an independent entity. Then here you'll see that we go to the side, just a little bit of a side note explanation. This is a little bit the interface, the high level interface that working with Rethink Lab we've come up. Obviously, this working ideally with someone in your team, that will have to happen, and then even with other competitors, at least have discussions to build this. Then the more important part is what we're doing in terms of the data management model, or the data analytical model, or whatever way you want to call it. But it's basically right now what we're seeing is it's relatively low volume. The amount of transactions, it is not an e-commerce site doing thousands of transactions per minute. No, it's basically you're doing this on a weekly basis with the MPOs, and this generates. I'm sorry, here what we've missed. I missed a comment. Is why is this graph here? Because there's a natural kind of trade-off between interpretability and flexibility, or you could also call it accuracy of ways to interpret represent data. Okay, or what they call statistical learning methods. Okay, and then what we're going to be focused on initially is focus on the interpretability, much more of a rules-based system, where you're basically saying, hey, this is what should happen, and if it doesn't happen, that should happen. Basically, a simpler model, while long-term, if we are able, and we'll explain how, to incorporate demand that's happening on the ground, then the volume increases quite dramatically. And obviously, we would be looking into deep learning and other models. Right now, this is a simpler equation. This is why the cost of it is also reduced, because the volume is not very high. Obviously, long-term, when you get into other kind of heavy data crunching and computing kind of systems, that's going to be quite different. Okay, but we want to bring this up. Then when you look at the phase 2, what we said, how do you capture the demand? How do you understand what's going on in the terrain? Demand through Toto search. Toto search was an example. Obviously, they can be done different ways. The beauty of Toto search is they already exist. There's already focused. It's true that it's much more focused, or they are much more focused right now on being a competitor of Google. Whatever they say it's not competition of Google, but it is competition of Google. But in every country, you can build the model that you want. So I think that's the interesting part for them. They don't lose much opportunity. Actually, I think they gain, because they're getting, in some countries, they might have the anti-Google. And in other countries, like potentially in Austria, through this agreement, they can have a much more specific application where we would capture locals through local search. We will be able to capture a lot of the what is actually people, what are people actually searching for? What do they want to know about? What is happening to them? This is very important. Right now, when something is happening to you, you search. And that's what's happening. And in a lot of local markets, and that's what Total Search is especially valuable, that's only going to happen in the local language, underrepresented by Google, underrepresented by the current market dominating entity. And then you will be able to, in different languages, aggregate demand and understand why through intelligent clustering of saying, hey, actually people seem to be searching about this. What the model is telling me is that actually what people are, they're not, it's not that there's a flu happening, it's actually something related to the diet. Well, this is a little bit complex, but depending on what people are searching, you will be able to actually connect demand much better to supply. And that's a completely different kind of ballgame. Then the third phase obviously would be a platform that connected everything, meeting also with manufacturers. That's what I think is the big ball game changer. Once you actually increase the efficiency of the large manufacturers, because they can truly forecast, they truly know what the demand is, they truly know how to deliver that. There's someone servicing it in an optimized way that can actually completely change the ball game and make Amex or this company and this parallel company into a force for good unicorn. Then eventually I did want to go back, circle back into the platform. Okay, what are the current objectives? What are the current deliverables? What are we going to be focused on? Focus on cost savings by increased conversion, by increased revenue. I'm very cautious of saying, hey, you don't need a bunch of people. You already know this, that's what happens with AI. But normally what happens is people are just redeployed. And the key thing here is that in reality, what you're going to be doing is delivering increased conversion, meaning you supply much better the market. So the market is just coming to you. The MPOs are coming to you. And then you can focus much more your resources on servicing the medical outcomes or the medical users much better and delivering a much higher on medical outcomes, improving your audit trail, obviously, and cost savings for MPOs. This is key. The MPOs are gonna be able to, with less money or with the same amount of money, deliver, get more goods, and that's going to improve medical outcomes. But this is already in the initial phase. Eventually, if we're able to capture the demand and connect it through the whole system, obviously it goes beyond, because it's not only that you're going to optimize the supply part of the equation, delivering, it's also you're actually going to be giving people what they need. So you're going to reduce inefficiencies dramatically. And that's the beauty of the system. Okay. So I think that the beauty of this is that this test doesn't take too long. Okay. If you think about it in terms of product development, 20 weeks by different phases. Obviously, this can be changed, altered, it can be modified, it can be gatekeep. But I think that for that to deliver something like this and be able to test it and be able to know if this is for the cost of around, obviously this is budgeted at 60K. That's what the supplier is giving. However, look, this is going to change enormously. I would forecast 100K. Doesn't really matter. We can adjust, but this is how fast you can get a real test, a real platform to be able to go to the market and see if this is what is needed. And this is a pretty good shot. That is a relatively fast opportunity and relatively low risk. So I think it's worth trying. I think we've come a long way. I do believe that now is the time. So let's talk next week and see how you see this. Okay, but let's move forward. I think the opportunity and especially what we can do, just too impactful to not give it a try. I think it's really worth it. Okay, talk soon.